my name's Phoebe, and I am the Global UX UI Design Lead, and I'm based in the New York office. I'm going to right now go through some really great tools and tricks of how you can edit and check patterns within CLO. These are really helpful, fast ways in which you can quickly edit and adjust your patterns and check them. So if you have any questions, please use the chat off to the side. We'll try to answer them all during this video through there. Let's get started. All right, so here I have my 2D window within CLO, all open and set up. So the first thing that we probably want to adjust is the layout of this. The layout's actually really important to make sure it's clean and organized because it's just going to help you edit things a little bit easier and quicker. And also, if you're not super familiar with patterns, if you have it nicely organized, people can understand it a little bit better. And also your 3D window will then reflect it a little bit as well. Okay, so let's work with how we can organize these patterns. So we can select our patterns, and the first thing I'm going to do is just make sure that they're all kind of lined up. Now you can do this in a few ways. You can do this by eye, or you could even go into this little eye tool right here, and you can bring in your rulers. And through there, you can grab in some guidelines and even help you line up your workspace through that as well. Another really great method that you can use is being able to align your patterns. Kind of like how you can align them in Illustrator. You can select all of your patterns, right click, and there's this align option. Here I could align to my bottom and then making sure that all my pattern pieces align to the bottom. Now, as you probably saw, my this yoke also moved down, so I wouldn't want that. I would just want these to right click and align to bottom. Great. I can select these two and right click and make sure they're aligned to center so that they're both in center. And I could even select this and move this down a little bit. I can do the same for these sleeves, so I could select them, right click and say align to bottom, and then they'll quickly move down to their bottom. Okay. This is all set up, and now I have a much cleaner workspace that everyone can kind of understand which sides go to which and everything. Speaking of 2D workspaces, what a lot of people don't know is this little eye icon here has a lot of great information that you can use really quickly and easily. It houses where you can show or hide the names of your pattern along with annotations. It also will allow you to show all of the line links that you may want to see along with your grain line. You can also show or hide points of measure. And as we've already know, you can show or hide your ruler and hide or show your guidelines. Another really helpful thing that your 2D toggle menu has is the different fabric view options. So you can view your fabrics in a lot of different ways. So you can have monochrome surface, which is nice if you have a really busy print and you just want to view the prints. You can also see your front texture view. And you also have this translucent option. Translucent's really great because it allows you to see through the pattern, but you still see your pattern as well. I really like translucent. We also have transparent, so you'll just see the outline of your patterns, and also your mesh view, the back view of your fabric. And if you have any really complicated patterns, we also have random color view. I'm going to be working with my transparent view so that if I ever need to lay pattern pieces on top of each other, I can do just that. Also, what's really nice is if you ever need to hide or show baselines, you can quickly do that up here with your t-shirt. You can hide or show your baselines, along with hiding or showing your seam allowance, grading, and 3D pen tools, reference lines, which is always really important to have, and also your symmetry. Before we jump in to any more editing or stuff, there's one other kind of like secret menu I want to show you all that you can do for your close screen and different ways in which you can set it up so that it works a little bit better for you. So one cool thing is here. If you go here to your close screen, right click, there's this grid properties option. Over here now in your grid property option, what you can see is you can see your 2D grid and show 2D grid, or you can hide it. You can also auto adjust distance with zoom. What that just means is like when you zoom in, you saw how before the boxes were bigger. If I uncheck this, they're just going to stay tiny no matter how I zoom in or out. I like to keep it on. Then you have the snap to grid option. So if you have your pattern pieces like this, you can then snap to grid. And there's snap to it. You also have your distance in inches. So this is basically telling you like how big you want all of the distances to be. You could do 0.5, you could do 1 inch, or you could do 0.3, which is what it was originally. The really awesome update too here that you can do is 2D arrow key movements. This is allowing you, so when you use the arrow keys on your keyboard, how much it'll move. So if you want it to be really small all the time, you could keep it 1.5. Or if you wanted it to be like 1/4 of an inch every time, you could then move it 1/4 of an inch every time using your arrow keys. What's nice is this is the same for your 3D window. You can do the same thing for your 3D arrow movements. You could do 0.25 or 0.150. It's really great and very helpful to help you set up. Okay, so now let's jump into some fun tools that you can use to edit really easily. One really great tool that I like is actually the half symmetry tool. So this is great for a collar like this one, because if you adjust one side, sometimes it's difficult to make sure the other side gets adjusted exactly the same. So you can apply half symmetry to this. All you have to do is go into your add point split line tool and create a center point on both the top and bottom. So I can just right click and say uniform split. And same here, right click, uniform split, okay. Now I can jump to my transform pattern tool, select this pattern, right click and say half symmetry. I now have my half symmetry applied. Again, it's just this transform pattern tool right here, selecting your pattern, right clicking and applying half symmetry. Now what's nice is anything I do to one side will automatically affect the other. So here I have some fullness in this collar that I kind of want to close up. Because I have half symmetry, I just have to close it up on one side. What's really nice, and that has been a nice little update, is with our fullness point, if you want to close something up but not have the curve affected, you can do that now. So all you have to do is click. I'm going to click on this baseline, say I want this side to be closed. And if I hold down D, my curve will not be adjusted. If I release D and I close this up, you'll start to see that this like purple line over here is going to be affected. But if I hold down D, it won't. I'm just going to change this to a curve point and then jump back here. So again, I'm going to hold down D so that the line doesn't get affected. If I release D, you see how this whole line would have changed. It's that dotted purple line that's telling you what it would be. I'm going to hold down D and close this up. And now my color has been adjusted. Another really great tool that I use a lot, especially for when I can't have half symmetry applied to a pattern because they're already like symmetric copies, is the duplicate as mirrored internal line. This is done using your edit pattern tool. The only thing you need to prep is making sure that you have a centered internal line on your pattern. So here I can select this line here, right click, and say duplicate as mirrored internal line. This is going to allow me to duplicate this over. I'm going to select this internal line as my reference line. And once I just click down on that, my internal line shows up right here. This is nice, so if I ever have to adjust or move this around, or if I wanted this sleeve to be the exact same as this one, I can easily match this up. One really nice trick also that I really love using is the replace pattern line option. So here I could select this pattern line and then hold down Shift and select this internal line. And I can right click and we have this replace as pattern outline. It is so great. Like, can't even explain to you how great. If I just click it, it automatically replaces it, and I have a reference line of the original. It's just magic. Like, love this line. It was really helpful a lot of the time for like sleeves like this, or even if you are trying to like add fullness to the front and then you want to add it equally to the back, which we can do next. So if I want to come in here and I'm like, hey, like I wanted to just like add some fullness right here. We could then just select it here, right click, replace pattern outline. And then what you can do is you can take this measurement. So it's 0.830. And then I can do right click and say 0.830, hit OK. And now I can just do the same thing. Like, so simple. It's amazing. I love it. Makes your life so much easier. Another tool that's really great. So these are some really great editing tools. One really great new editing tool that I love is this ability to lock your lines in place. It is so great. It makes it so that if you edit something, like you're editing your side seam, but you don't want your armhole to be adjusted, you can now do that. Like, yes, all of your like wishes have been granted. Congratulations. So let me show you exactly how this can work. So with my edit pattern tool here, I could select this line, right click and say lock, and this will now lock that line. If I start to move this side seam, however, like I want, this point will not move at all because it's locked in place completely. So it's not going to like come in or out or anything like that, making it so that you won't have to worry about your armhole getting distorted at all. If that doesn't make you smile, I don't know what will. You can just easily right click and unlock pattern outlines, and then you're all set. You can also lock points. So I could right click, select this point, right click and lock it. This will make it so I could adjust this whole line and this one as well. But this point will stay exactly where it should. And as we all know, there's unlimited undos. So even though I made this pattern crazy, I can just Control Z and everything's okay. All right, now let's go over some great ways in which you can match up your patterns to make sure that everything is where it should be and stuff. So one way that I really love matching up a pattern is by selecting like my shoulder seams here, right clicking and saying match up to start. This will then match up my patterns and then I can check them all. If I wanted to check this whole armhole, what I could really easily do too is match these lines up. So I could right click and match up to start, and then everything's all matched. Then I could quickly check this armhole, make sure it's the right shape that I want and everything. To quickly rotate this, I could just select my pattern piece here, right click, and say rotate x-axis or y-axis, either or. I'm going to do x-axis. This will make it horizontal. Then I could go to like my internal line here, which I'm using as my grain line, and I can just select and make this straight horizontal. I could then just use my bounding boxes and rotate them as well if I wanted to. What's really nice about this bounding box that you can pair with your translucent view is you can select, like you can move this over, or I could match up. Look at that. And I could take my bounding box and double click on this point to be able to move it and activate it. And then I can move it right to my armhole and then rotate it so that it rotates along my armhole. Here I could even check and see like these are two different measurements. Like this is a little bit too long than this. And I could use my edit pattern tool and actually adjust this. I also have to unlock everything. And then I can adjust it. There's also another way in which I could adjust this. So let me select this, right click, rotate, y-axis. Now this is straight. Great. Another really great way in which you can match up patterns is using your walk pattern tool. This tool is really helpful. Like, if anyone remembers back in the day when you had to actually walk a physical pattern and you were just like, wow, hate paper, it's the worst. It's so much easier digitally. Like, it's so great. So going to this walk pattern tool here, you can just select this point and then hit, and then the arrow goes straight here. And then you can just walk your pattern. And where you see that it's not like too far, I can right click and add a notch to my walked pattern, telling me exactly where it is. I can then just hit enter. And now what I can do is I can go to my notch and add a point and find out what this exact measurement is. Or from all the things that we've learned today, we could do the fun replace pattern and zero it out. Wouldn't that be nifty? Okay, so we could either figure out this measurement and just retract the line using our offset pattern, or you can go to our internal line tool and using this point, we can just click here and we can zero it out to wherever it's zeroed. We could either just like gradually do this, or we could hold down shift and just make sure that it goes to the edge of here. I'm going to gradually zero out and then double click to end. And now I can just select these, right click, replace this pattern outline. And now I'm all set. And if I check this again, you'll see that it all matches up. Okay, so now that all of our patterns are all matched up and everything, we can now add in some internal lines and like create some fun style lines or anything like that. What's really great about this internal lines is we've actually updated them so that you can like add variations in which you input your internal lines. They don't all have to be uniformed in the same measurement apart. Now you can variate that because more options, right? Okay, so let's go into how you can do internal lines. So in our edit pattern tool here, you can select your bottom line here, right click, offset as internal line. I'm going to do number of offsets, let's say like 3. Actually, let's go crazy and say 5. And now with distance, I could do all, which is the old uniform way, or I could do individual. What's great about the individual is now I can decide if I want the individuals to be measured out by the previous line or the selected line, which is the first line that you selected. Let's do selected line first, right? So with selected line, you can then measure these out. So I could do like 1 inch from my selected line, and then I want 3 inches from the selected line, and then 4 inches from the selected line, and then 6 inches from the selected line. And the fact that I can do this in my head is a little bit impressive, at least to me. And then 7 inches from the selected line. And you can see here that now you have variations going through. And they're not all the same measurement. Now, you can also do this if I selected it here, right clicked, offset as internal line. And instead of selected, I did previous. So here I could do, so 1 inch from the first, and then 2 inches from the last, then 1 inch from this one, and then 2 inches from that one, and then 1 inch from this one. And now I have that all set up, and I can hit OK. Thank you so much for watching this. I hope you've enjoyed the workshop and that you were able to gain some new knowledge and insight. Please don't forget that there's a lot of other design workshops and videos for you to watch. Try to tune into them throughout the day.